From MTN News, you're watching Montana This Morning.
A new Gallatin County 911 employee gets busted for impersonating the sheriff. Coming up, find out where and how that happened and how stories of this incident are vastly different.
Plus, learn the difference between the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines that are already being used. We'll explain the strengths and weaknesses of each vaccine.
Well, it is knocking on the door at 6:30 on this Tuesday. Chet Lehman, Holly Brantley, Matt Elwell with you here. Spring is definitely in the, you can
At least
feel
we
it.
want it to be.
It's right here, I can feel it. It's time for it to be spring.
At least we want it to be.
Yeah.
But it could be.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a little spring fever would go a long way. I think sunshine's really what we're watching for the afternoons here for the next couple of days. That's going to do a lot of melting and eventually allow us to really see these temperatures build. The morning temperature's not bad, into the 20s for most of us. 25 degrees in Butte, 30 degrees in Belgrade. We've been below zero in West Yellowstone. Our skies partly cloudy this morning. It's going to make for a beautiful sunrise. Already seeing the at least evidence of that looking off of our Bozeman iCam this morning. Temperatures for the afternoon, I'm calling for low 40s for today for both Bozeman and Butte. Again, we have a lot of snow on the ground and we've got to melt a good portion of that before we really see these temperatures take off. I'm going to talk more about that, a look at February as a whole and much more. That's coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, thank you, Matt. Just ahead of 6:31 now, Gallatin County employee charged with impersonating a public official at a Bozeman motel.
According to court documents, 44-year-old Mark K. Ward was serving as Assistant Director of Public Safety Systems for a week. Court documents say the Bozeman Police Department responded to a report from a Bozeman motel off of Wheat Drive by a manager saying a guest was saying he was the new sheriff of Gallatin County and was using his position to demand things from the staff. Charging documents say Ward told officers he denied being the new sheriff when asked by motel staff, but did request a government employee rate.
I recognize that the defendant does not have any criminal history but has very limited ties to the community, as well as the fact of the seriousness of the allegations that are contained within the APC, and essentially the defendant blaming it on the slow working minds of the hotel staff.
Court documents also state that Ward threatened to shoot a guest and say Ward denied representing himself as a law enforcement officer. During an interview with officers, bail was set at $5,000.
In other headlines this morning, Montana expected to receive around 8,700 doses of the Johnson & Johnson COVID-19 vaccine later this week. Now that's a lot more than the 1,500 vaccines officials said they expected to get when the new vaccine approval was first announced. Governor Greg Gianforte says he anticipates counties will begin distributing those doses sometime next week. Right now, the state of Montana reporting that roughly 8% of the state's total population has been vaccinated for the virus. Since it's a single shot, Johnson & Johnson vaccine will significantly increase the number of people considered fully vaccinated against the virus in the coming weeks. 6:32 now, states are starting to receive shipments of that Johnson & Johnson vaccine this morning, but the technology behind it, a little different.
Johnson & Johnson built its vaccine from a virus that causes the common cold, known as adenovirus.
The science behind Johnson & Johnson's single-dose COVID-19 vaccine and the Moderna and Pfizer 2 shots is different but not new.
Yeah, Johnson & Johnson's vaccine takes a small amount of genetic material from the coronavirus, combines it with a weakened version of the common virus called the adenovirus. That combination doesn't make us sick. Adenovirus technology was used to make Ebola and tuberculosis vaccines.
Pfizer and Moderna use mRNA technology that uses a genetic code to make the antigenic protein specific to COVID. This code tells our body to make the antigen itself, prompting an immune response.
Messenger RNA platform allows for scientists and drug makers to update the coding on these vaccines sooner, faster, and at a different pace than adenovirus vectored vaccine. So in that sense, should we need a booster immune shot, very likely will come from those mRNA-based platforms.
Now, Pfizer and Moderna are already testing a third booster shot to protect against COVID variants. Meanwhile, Johnson & Johnson may have the advantage of one and done for now, since it only requires a single dose. It can be stored for months in a refrigerator. Now, all three were found to be highly effective in preventing severe disease and death.
It makes me hopeful that by summer, we'll be able to vaccinate millions and millions of people and have a little bit more normalcy back.
The Johnson & Johnson vaccine is also expected to boost vaccination equity since it's only one dose and is easier to store.
6:34 now. Many people may not realize it, but many college students experience food insecurity.
So MTN's John Amy tells us a group of students on the Butte campus plan to do something about it.
When a student group at Montana Tech conducted a poll last year, they discovered about 40% of students at the Butte University reported a food insecurity.
They reported that they went without a meal, or they didn't feel like they had enough money to go buy proper nutrition.
The Associated Students of Montana Tech responded by starting its own food pantry at the university that will allow students to take a free bag of food twice a week. Some students say they definitely felt food insecurity on the campus.
I was also kind of trying to sneak food out of the sub so I could have more in my dorm room.
The Student Association's plan to start the pantry was supported by Chancellor Les Cook and his wife Stephanie, and donations from local organizations started pouring in.
It's actually very rare that a university doesn't have a food support system. So when they found out that we didn't, this was one of their main priorities.
And many Montana Tech students say that during these difficult times, it is tough to make ends meet, and they say that they really appreciate having this pantry here to help them get through their busy day.
I know all my friends, we always joke about how for dinners we always have like a cracker, just a saltine cracker for dinner, and we're always making jokes how we don't eat well and stuff like that. So that's just another reason, like if you are eating saltine crackers for dinner, come to the food pantry and get yourself a bag of food.
Montana Tech is hosting an online fundraiser at its website to try to raise $15,000 for the pantry. In Butte, John Amy, MTN News.
Staying in the mining city for a moment, the Colonial Apartments in Uptown Butte have been given a new lease on life. That building has been empty for at least 16 years. Restoration effort has been stalled for some time. New owner has now taken on the responsibility to turn the empty building into an 18-unit apartment building.
Nice.
It's a beautiful plan. There'll be some loft apartments. There will be studio apartments. There'll be, 1 to 2 bedroom apartments as well. Common spaces of a laundry room, storage facilities, exercise room, lounge. It's going to be a really, really nice addition to our residential options in Uptown.
So happy to see that. By the way, that project will cost $536,000. Butte's Urban and Revitalization Agency awarded a grant and loan for the project. Number of apartments was scaled back from 24 to 18 to make that project more affordable. Of that as well.
That's amazing. Well, here's another happy story. One of 2 young bald eagles recently rescued near Shepherd is back in her natural habitat.
Yeah, ready to take flight. The young eagle released into the area. She was found back in early February. As you can see, a few hops. She spread her wings again to soar. Shepherd couple Carrie and Julie Betts originally found the eagle cold and malnourished. 2 weeks later, they found a young male eagle face down in the snow, suffering from lead poisoning. The Betts transported both raptors to the Montana Raptor Conservation Center in Bozeman, where they've been recovering. Yesterday, the young, healthy female handed over to Betts in Reed Point before heading to Shepherd. An emotional Julie Betts says this eagle ready to take on the world.
Simply put, is that it seems as though whenever I personally am going through a difficult time, they'll show up in my life, and when I watch them, they are so confident and determined and very strong, and for some reason I can absorb that strength.
That's awesome. According to Becky Keene, the Montana Raptor Center, she says the male's still recovering, but will soon take to the skies as well. It's always the right thing to do, the right thing.
Yes,
love that story.
That's just awesome.
That's it. Unfortunately, they were lead poisoned, and I'm hoping we can find out why that happened as well. Meantime, 6:39, a programming note for you. Court TV now live on our .5 subchannel. That's 7.5 in Bozeman, 4.5 in the mining city. Your TV should decode it automatically if you can just punch in the channel numbers. Court TV, of course, your front row seat to justice. Tune in. and enjoy. I don't know why I use that voice, but I did. I did.
And coming up here, you probably know all too well what Zoom fatigue is, but do you know how to fight it? Coming up, we have some tips for staying connected without the side effects.
I'm gonna keep doing it. Here we go. Let's check in with our friends at CBS This Morning to see what's coming up at 7 o'clock.
Uh-oh.
Good morning to you. Ahead on CBS This Morning, 50 million Americans have now received at least one dose of COVID vaccine, and Johnson & Johnson's is on the way. Why the CDC warns it's still too soon to let our guard down. Please don't forget that. Also, new data show the COVID baby boom some doctors were expecting has become, well, a major baby bust. Why is that happening and how it points to a bigger issue in society? And only on CBS This Morning, soccer star Abby Wambach and her wife, that's New York Times bestselling author Glennon Doyle, talk with us about women's equality and their fight for change. They're fighting hard, too. We'll see you 7 o'clock on the dot.